We did it. We have hit 4,000 subscribers thanks to you, the Mets daily viewers here on YouTube. As I record this, we're at 4,023 subscribers, so real nice bump yesterday into today, right before the birthday. So we hit 4K for the birthday tomorrow. Thank you so much for your support, everybody. Keep on subscribing. Keep on sharing the channel. Hit that thumbs up. Keep on commenting. We'll get to your comments again at the end of today's show. Appreciate your support. For the fans, by the fans. That's how we do it, baby. We're getting closer and closer to the Mets season. You're starting to see the videos come out. Christian Scott throwing a couple bullpen sessions already. You see Tong out there. You see Freddie Peralta out there. You see a lot of the Met pitchers already there early. Clay Holmes. You see pitching coach Justin Willard. You know, all the videos coming out is a glorious sight here on February 4th, and you saw this February 3rd, to see these guys, McLean. Like, this is good. Now, they obviously have to report, you know, at a certain date, but they're here earlier than you would expect, and that means they're ready for ball, and I think that's important. And, you know, the Mets could be even more ready for ball if they sign Framber Valdez. Now, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't even think there's a remote chance it happens, but we have not been able to predict any Mets move. Like, they all have been coming out of nowhere. So, would it stun me if they signed him? No. But should the Mets consider it? Yes. Because at this point, Framber Valdez is the last man standing in terms of elite, the upper echelon of free agents here as we sit here on February 4th. And, you know, if you can get him on a one-year deal, why would you not, is my question. Is like, why would you not? You know, you're going to have to pay the luxury tax. That's where it gets tricky. But, you know, if they want to blow through and that $400 million, you sign Framber Valdez, and you talk about a rotation of Framber Valdez, Freddie Peralta, Nolan McLean, and you're cooking with gas come postseason if those guys stay on the mound. If that's your game 1, 2, and 3 starters, and not even to mention everyone else, Manaea, Senga, Peterson, Clay Holmes, like, the Mets rotation would be set and elite and arguably the best in baseball, maybe right behind the Dodgers or right there with the Dodgers if they went out there and signed Framber Valdez. Let us know what you think in the comments below. The Blue Jays are interested, but if you're the Mets and you get them on a one-year deal, I say why not? A more realistic option for the Mets, a name we haven't really mentioned much at all this offseason, is Jose Quintana. Hip, hip, Jose. Jose was a key part of the 2024, you know, OMG Mets and everything that went right in that year. And, you know, on that note, by the way, and aside to that, Harrison Bader did an interview on Foul Territory talking about how important chemistry was. And I think a lot of people will comment and say, chemistry is not important. It's about the pitching. It's about the hitting. Harrison Bader, who's been on a bunch of teams, mentioned how critical it is for a team to have great chemistry and how the 2024 Mets just had that chemistry with OMG, Candelita, Jose Iglesias being a big part of it, Luis Severino, Jose Quintana being a big part of it. Mets didn't have those pieces. They changed some key pieces in 2025, and you saw they kind of collapsed. Once they started losing, they fell apart. And winning cures everything. That's 100% true, but winning with vibes and winning with guys that want to play for each other also cures everything, because when you lose, you bounce back quicker. The 2024 Mets, when they lost, they bounced back. The 2025 Mets never bounced back. That is a team that went on long losing streaks. So that's an aside. I saw that Bader interview, and I found it interesting how much he, you know, pointed to team chemistry and how he, when he walks the streets by Mets fans, they're singing OMG to him. But Jose Quintana, why would you not take a flyer on him? Because you want to talk about money. He's not going to cost much. Jose Quintana is going to sign for 1 year and $6 million at the very most. He is not going to cost more than $6 million. The question is, does Quintana want to be a Met where he's not sure what his role is going to be? Jose Quintana could sign a 1 year, $6 million deal and not be guaranteed a spot in the rotation. You know, if the Mets were to sign someone like Quintana, to me, it feels like they would trade either Peterson or Senga, like we've talked about. Like, it doesn't feel to me that on opening day, one of Senga or Peterson will be Mets. And, you know, maybe they will. It just feels like if they try and bolster the rotation, they will have one guy in and one guy come out, because they don't have a spot for 8 starting pitchers. They don't have a spot for 7. You want depth, but you also aren't going to pay a guy $6 to $10 million to not pitch at all, you know, or to be a one-inning reliever. So to me, I don't see why you wouldn't take a flyer on Jose Quintana, but he's another case of, does he want to come to a situation where he's just not sure what his role will be? Let us know in the comments. Do you have interest in Jose Quintana? Keith Hernandez announced, he said he wasn't really supposed to say it. He went on our buddy Laura Albanese show from Newsday, first-time listener, long-time caller. She does a great job covering the Mets for Newsday. and has been a member of Mets Daily, been on the show before. Keith went on there, a 72-year-old Keith, by the way. He's getting up there, and said his new contract, likely expected to be 3 years. He said, I'm not supposed to talk about this, but it'll be cut back to 91 games from 110. So Keith is doing just over a half season. Remember, there's 162 games, 81 is a half, so he's doing 91. So 10 more games. Very intriguing. Curious, are the Mets going to go two-man with Ron those games? There's obviously going to be some with the three of them. Is it going to be more Zeal? I'm sorry, I'm not a big Todd Zeal guy. Love Jerry Blevins, but we'll love Gary Cohen, Jerry Blevins. Zeal, though, does not do it for me. Very curious where they go. Murphy, I think, was all right, but SNY broadcast is going to be fascinating. And how is it going to look? Obviously, you guys all saw the big news. John DeMarsico was let go by SNY. I'm not going to say much on that matter. It's kind of flew under the radar. He put that letter out there. There were rumors out there. All I'll say this, and I'll rest my case on this. It wasn't creative differences. All I'll say is that it was not creative differences. There is more to that, and it wasn't on SNY. It wasn't SNY's fault that their director is gone. That's all I'll say about that. On another note, and I know people might comment on that, but that's just, I heard things from trustworthy people about that matter, and that's all I'll say on that. Carlos Beltran was a trustworthy player, and he's going to the Hall of Fame, and he's going to the Hall of Fame in a Mets cap, and that is awesome. Going in as a Met, and he should. He had similar amount of years with the Royals, but his numbers, his memorable years were in a New York Mets uniform, and that is such a cool feeling for us. Like, as a franchise that doesn't have a lot of guys that go in as Mets, has very few, by the way. I mean, it's a microscopic number. Who went into the Hall of Fame in a Mets cap? Like, I'm pretty sure it's just Seaver, Piazza, Beltran, right? Like, yeah, that's it. So the only three players featured with the Mets cap in the Hall of Fame: Seaver, Piazza, Beltran. I knew that was it. I was like, there's no one else, right? The big three. So our third guy to go in as a Met. Isn't that crazy? 60-plus years of this franchise, and this is only our third player to go in. And it's prideful. A guy that was part of my fandom. Like, right? I got to see Piazza. I got to see, a little Piazza, 5-6 years of Piazza. And I got to see Carlos Beltran's whole Met career. And now he's the first, full Met career I got to watch that's going to the Hall. So that's a cool feeling. So Keith is cutting back. Beltran's in the Hall. Changes at SNY with directing and with broadcasting. We'll see where they go. Now let's get to your comments. Thank you again once to everyone to getting us to 4,000 subscribers. It's been a long week. I'm struggling this week. Going back to Jersey later tonight. Birthday tomorrow. Another Benihana dinner tomorrow. Let's get to the comments. From Gal Monte, can you stop with Yandy Diaz, please? The Mets are not trading for another DH. He's so bad defensively, the Rays gave up on his defense. He played 114 games at DH last year. And you want Senga for him. And you want to trade Reimer for Romero. Are you really a Mets fan? First off, they're really a Mets fan contract. It's insane. It's just absurd. If you watch Yandy Diaz hit, which is what you're getting him for, and you're saying, you're giving up Senga for him, that's too much. I'm sorry. Are you the Mets fan is the question. Jojo Romero was an elite reliever. You have to give prospects up. You got to stop prospect hugging with some of these guys. And Reimer might be great, but if it was Reimer for Romero straight up, it's probably even. Maybe it's a bit of an overpay for the Mets, but you have to give to get. The Mets getting Jojo Romero, the Cardinals aren't taking the Mets' 30th best prospect for a guy who had elite years as a lefty reliever. Like, it has to give to get. So you can tell me stop with Yandy Diaz, which is fine. But to say, are you really a Mets fan because I wanted to trade Jacob Reimer for Jojo Romero is just pure insanity. I mean, Jacob Reimer is not Mike Piazza. He's not David Wright. We don't know what he is. He's a lottery ticket. He's a prospect. We don't know. And he could be great, but let's not act like Jacob Reimer is the second coming of the Lord and Savior. Steve Mangy says Polanco can't play first base. Not because he's bad defensively, but because he would get hurt making the stretch to catch first base because it's the most active position. Yeah, I mean, listen, he's played all around the diamond. I don't know about that. I mean, he's going to combination DH and first because he has to stretch. That means he's going to get hurt. That's kind of ridiculous, you know. Again, first base is not this like position that takes the most athletic player in sport. Pete Alonso played there and was okay, like, and was not in shape. So I think that's a bit of a stretch. Adam Mycott says pipe dream, but would Ben Joyce and Trout be enough to sacrifice Ben Peterson plus offer? Get Joyce at the back of pen throwing balls, have Trout play corner. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think the Mets would take a risk, Adam, on Trout's contract and injury history. You know, he's kind of become a strikeout machine too. You know, when he is healthy, I don't think that's anything the Mets would consider. It's not a bad thought. I just don't think Trout's contract and injury history would make sense for the Mets to give up Ben Peterson and others. Kevin K says, I don't like the trade. I think they're running with this roster. Yeah, I mean, they may not make drastic changes. And listen, people are like, you don't know, rumor did, blah, 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 blah. I do a show every day. We have to come up with topics to discuss. So, yes, most of these topics are not going to come to fruition. But, you know, we have content to talk about. It's called Mets Daily. It's not Mets Weekly. It's Mets Daily. Luis Rodriguez said the Mets end up with Valdez in a one-year tier deal at I give up, guys. The Mets should absolutely trade Senga a good prospect for Diaz. Senga either Mauricio Beatty or Ventura. Minor problem included a decent reliever. Then this team would be fully complete. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think this team right now can win the division. But I think the Mets are, you know, one big splash from being the favorite to win the division. I think right now, you know, the Vegas, I think that has them neck and neck with the Braves and Phillies. But I think the Mets win the division if they make one more kind of big splash, like a Yandy or like a Framber. T. Petro, I do the Senga for Yandy. While Senga's high potential, if he's healthy, he's been fragile the last 2 years. And yeah, I think that's the Rays saying, hey, we get a starting pitcher who's been fragile, but when he's on, he's good. We get him for a similar number to what Yandy's going to make the next 2 years. So financially, it adds up. You know, we hit a certain amount where MLB is not going to hit us with a certain tax. There's a certain threshold minimum you have to hit, and we could still hit that if we get Senga in return for Yandy, where our payroll is not too low, where MLB comes after us, because that grievance can be filed, like the Marlins, similar, you know, if the Marlins didn't hit a certain number, there could have been a grievance filed by Major League Baseball. The Rays, if they moved on from Yandy and say got Vientos and nothing else, would be pretty close to that territory. Like Yandy is their highest paid player. So that's the other factor you have to factor into this stuff. Chuck Sam says, I have to say, I cannot even begin to understand how your channel doesn't have many, many more subscribers. You keep things current. You kick around a bunch of interesting and informative ideas. You're well informed. So, of course, I'm curious in regards to your background. And you're definitely a true Mets fan, which is not easy. Chuck wins comment of the year right there. We love a guy that, you know, someone that is very nice, gas you up, and tells it how it is. Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate that. Yeah, listen, I replied to that, and Jay also said, love his stuff. Appreciate that, guys. Yeah, I mean, I did Amazing But True with Nelson Figueroa 4 years. I got to interview. I'm not going to go on about my career, but, you know, if you don't know my background, I launched the New York Post Sports Podcast Network in 2019. I produced every team's show there. I co-hosted the Mets show with Nelson Figueroa, the former Met who we have on. I co-hosted the Jets show with Brian Costello. I did the Knicks show a bit. I did a Nets show with Kerry Kittles. Knicks with Sal Licata, Giants with Lawrence Tynes and Paul Schwartz and Brandon London. So I was big in the New York sports space. I covered the Mets for WFAN. I used to write columns for them back in 2017, 2018 after I got laid off at CBS. So I've been covering the Mets in some capacity for it feels like 10 years now. Well, probably longer. Early in my career, I would cover some games too for a Long Island radio station I was on for a bit. So appreciate that. And I'm a diehard. Yeah, I'm a fan. That, you know, people say I don't know anything. I know stuff. You know, I know people behind the scenes. I've interviewed a lot of former Mets. I, you know, have had a unique career. So I appreciate that comment because I have worked hard at this. I am still grinding. I am still growing. And, yeah, I mean, we're only year one of the channel, so it's hard to grow, get to 10,000 subscribers off the bat. But listen, I would love us to get to 10,000 subscribers this year. And maybe that sounds unrealistic. We're at 4 through year one. Why not get 6K more? So keep sharing the channel if you do like it. and appreciate that, Chuck. We'll close on that comment. We'll end on a good note. Thank you so much to all you who did subscribe, and thank you for all your support, your comments. Next goal is 5,000 subscribers, and then we'll think about 10, but let's get to 5 first. We'll get to the 5th day of February tomorrow, my 35th birthday. So we'll join you on my birthday tomorrow. Thanks so much for your support, everybody. Let's go Mets. Keep in that thumbs up, and follow me at Jake Brown Live. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Mets Daily.